In today's episode, we're looking at 5 PlayStation 4 games that look and run better than ever on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Bear in mind, these also look and play great on a base PS5, but the Pro has the exclusive ability to further enhance PlayStation 4 games with its built-in PSSR AI filtering. Now, this is a toggle in the system settings that's automatically turned on. If you ever run into issues with visual bugs or anything unforeseen, just go ahead and turn it off and then it's going to run more like a base PS5. Additionally, you might notice a little bit better frame rates because there's a little bit more horsepower in the PlayStation 5 Pro, so that's always a plus. And to start our list, we're looking at God of War 3 Remastered, originally released on the PlayStation 3 in 2010, and this PlayStation 4 version released in 2015. The frame rate has always been 60 frames per second with this remaster, which is double the frame rate of the PlayStation 3 original, but through the power of the PS5, it's able to be more stable than ever. But what shines here is the PSSR filtering, which does a pretty good job of enhancing the visual quality. It is noticeably better. Now, there are a few caveats here, the first of which being cutscenes. Many of the cutscenes are pre-rendered video, so due to that, they're at 30 frames per second and slightly grainy from compression. So it is a bit jarring going from 30 frames per second compressed video to 60 frames per second enhanced imagery in real time. That's always been the case, but I just wanted to point that out. Also, there's a random visual bug in the game where textures do not look right. They look like they're unfinished or in alpha form. I don't think it's too prevalent in the game. I only found it several random times, but it looks bad when you see it. As far as I know, it's a general PlayStation 5 issue because even after I turned off the PS5 Pro toggle, it still remained. So as far as I know, there's no solution to it. Now, all of that put to the side, one of the reasons I wanted to look at God of War 3 is because this was a visual showpiece for the PlayStation 3. Imagine if they were able to do this with more classic games from the PlayStation 3, such as Killzone or Resistance. The sky's the limit. They've got so much from their catalog that deserve to be brought back. And no, I do not count PlayStation Plus premium streaming to be a solution to that. That is half-baked at best, not acceptable. We want native releases of these games with enhancements. That would be amazing. The fans want it. They need to do it. When it comes to the game itself, this has one of the craziest openings you'll ever see. You're literally on the back of a Titan fighting enemies while the Titan is trying to climb up the mountain to get to Zeus. It is absolutely insane, which is par the course for God of War. From unleashing devastating combos on groups of enemies, turning them into battering rams, beating them down and tearing them to pieces, Kratos' rage is as great as ever in God of War 3, especially when you get to killing the Greek gods, which is typical Kratos. God of War has always been no-holds-barred and over-the-top action. For those that may not know and have only played God of War since 2018, aka God of War 4 and its sequel Ragnarok, which took a couple of pages from the Last of Us formula and applied it to God of War, the original God of War games felt quite a bit different. So God of War 3 and the prequel God of War Ascension, also on the PlayStation 3, were the last iterations of that classic God of War formula. Whether you're a fan of God of War already or a newcomer, God of War 3 is a nice way to re-experience the old formula of God of War on your PlayStation 5 Pro. So God of War 3 Remastered, you should definitely check it out. Our next title is going to be Killzone Shadowfall, one of the premier launch titles of the PlayStation 4 back in 2013. When you compare Shadowfall to its launch on the PlayStation 4 versus now on the PS5 Pro, it is a huge difference. It's almost like the game was remastered. Originally on the PS4 or even PS4 Pro, it was highly ill-advised to run it at the unlocked frame rate, which was upwards of 60, but usually only ran at best in the mid-40s. So at that time, you really wanted to run it on the locked 30 option to be more stable. Now on the PS5 Pro, the frame rate is at virtually a locked 60, and with the image quality being enhanced by the PSSR, it looks and plays better than it ever has before. So if you're a fan of Shadowfall, this is going to be a real treat. Now, in terms of a Killzone game, yes, it's one of the lesser of the Killzone franchise, but it's still a cool shooter. So this was actually the birth of the Decima engine, which powers Horizon Zero Dawn, Death Stranding, and Until Dawn. It's a gorgeous engine, and it's still going with the upcoming Death Stranding 2. And this game is no different. It visually holds up really well with some gorgeous vistas. Lots of detail and effects, it looks fantastic. Although I must admit, some of the gunplay doesn't look and feel as luscious as it did in Killzone 2 and 3, which were phenomenal in the way the gunplay looked and felt, but still very solid. Having said that, one of my favorite new features in Shadowfall is the ability to slow down time in combat. The problem is you're only able to do it with health stems, which you don't get very many of. You really don't want to waste them on that. If this ability to go into bullet time would have been regenerable, they really could have set themselves apart from the past titles. What is nice in Shadowfall is you have a little drone buddy that you're able to use that launches off your shoulder, whether it be attack enemies, stun enemies, put up a shield to block their shots, or use it as a grappling hook. It's really neat. Probably the drone's most valuable ability is the ability to resuscitate you, just like they were able to in Killzone 3, at least until you run out of health stims. So that's one of the nice new additions to the game compared to the rest of the franchise. What's also nice is they brought secondary fire options back, which was a past complaint for me for 2 and 3, so that's actually really cool. But a new complaint I have is that you're only able to change out one of your weapons versus both, because you carry 2 at a time, but when you have your first submachine gun, he won't drop the submachine gun, he only drops the other weapon. So that kind of takes away from the options of versatility of having 2 different weapons, because you have to carry one, you can only swap out the other, particularly the sniper rifle and the shotgun. But there was an AR that I really liked that came off of one of your friendly soldiers. I found it once and used it, and I really liked it, and I couldn't find it again. So depending on your preference, you might end up in a situation where you like a gun, but you hardly ever get to use it because, well, it depends on if you find it or not. So that's actually unfortunate. There should have been more options for you to choose your weapons. Now the story feels a little bit tacked on. I'm not saying it's an ultra compelling story, but there are some very interesting characters here that help it move along. You play as Lucas, who was rescued by Sinclair after your father was killed by the Hellgast. He finished raising you, trained you, and now you work under his command. Then there's Echo, who's half Hellgast, half Vectin. You don't know if she's a good guy or a bad guy. She's quite mysterious and well designed. So having your close relationship with Sinclair, trying to figure out her motives and unravel her mystery, it really does help the story along with these characters. But I gotta reiterate, there are moments in this where the visuals are absolutely jaw-dropping beautiful. It's crazy. It's stuff you don't even see nowadays a lot of the time. While the gameplay is not revolutionary, it's not even quite as good as some of the past Killzones, I must admit, but it is a pretty solid shooter that at a bare minimum is worth checking out for the visuals alone. But it really does help the gameplay with it running and looking so much better than before, especially if you're a big fan of the Killzone franchise. So if you never got around to revisiting Shadowfall on the PlayStation 5 or you never played it in the first place, you should definitely give it a shot. It's a worthwhile title. And the next game we're covering is Dark Souls 3, released for the PlayStation 4 in 2016. Now I'm going to make a bold statement since this is a multi-platform title. Playing Dark Souls 3 on the PlayStation 5 Pro is the absolute definitive way of playing Dark Souls 3 on consoles in 2024, bar none, period. While the Xbox One port is perfectly serviceable since it has that FPS boost update that enables it to play in 60 FPS, but it's only at 900p, so the image quality is pretty blurry. Whereas the PS4 version runs at 1080p natively, and because of the PS4 Pro patch from years ago, it runs at 60 FPS, while on the PlayStation 4 Pro, it was never able to really hit that FPS mark. It was just an unlocked frame rate, so it was pretty inconsistent. Now, through the power of the PS5 and Pro, it is able to run at a locked 60, and with the PSSR filters, it looks better than ever, vastly superior to the Xbox One version. So like I said, playing it on the PS5 Pro is the definitive way to play Dark Souls 3 now on consoles. As far as the game goes, this is my favorite of all the Dark Souls series. I absolutely love this game. It was my game of the year of 2016. Until Elden Ring, this was my favorite From Software game. There really is just something magical about Miyazaki and his team and the games they make. The art direction is phenomenal. The intro is absolutely insane. Even Elden Ring wasn't able to top this intro. It feels like an epic movie. There's no compression in this intro. It looks phenomenal. The combat is better than ever in the Dark Souls series. The level of map design is incredible. This is the last of the Dark Souls series, and I would say this is the peak of Dark Souls. One of the things that's truly special about Dark Souls 3, as well as the likes of Elden Ring, is if you persevere, you will prevail. That's it. It's really special, and there's something so rewarding about it. You really are able to make your character your own with the different weapon types you're able to use and the different armor, whether it be heavy or light, slow or fast, whatever the case, make it yours and own it, persevere, and you will prevail. I promise you. Don't give up. Whenever you're knocked down, just pick yourself back up again. Just like Tub Thumping from Chumbawamba. Man, I love Tub Thumper. Such a classic 90s album. It's so rewarding. There's nothing like Dark Souls. While there are plenty of clones, and there's some worthy ones, at the end of the day, aside from the likes of Elden Ring, also being from Miyazaki, of course, there's such an incredible purity to the difficulty and combat and world building of Dark Souls. And that's not even mentioning the DLC. I've only been talking about the base game. The DLC is absolutely awesome. Totally adds to the game. Great weapons and enemies and gorgeous environments. It's really awesome. This is one of the greatest games ever made. If not for Elden Ring, this would be in my absolute top 10, because it was until Elden Ring. Elden Ring kind of took it off its throne for me, because I really, really love Elden Ring. Whether you're completely new to the franchise, you've only played Elden Ring, whatever the case, you have to absolutely check out Dark Souls 3. It's a masterpiece, and I'm not exaggerating when I say, when you go from playing it on the base PS4 like I did, all the way up to now on the PS5 Pro, it genuinely feels like a remaster. It's so much better. It's truly awesome. I can't say enough good things about it. You've got to check out Dark Souls 3 on the PS5 Pro. It's incredible. And here we have Earth Defense Force 5, released worldwide on the PlayStation 4 in 2018. Ah, Earth Defense Force. How much I love this series. I've been playing them for a lot of years now, and especially EDF5. I've poured over 1,100 hours into this game. I absolutely love this game, and I think it's the best in the entire series, even with EDF6 being on the current market. In terms of enhancements, the image quality is better than ever with the PSSR filtering. It looks rather sharp, but the performance here is night and day compared to playing it on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Pro, which was how I originally played it. But I'm not going to paint some rosy picture. The performance still suffers. That's because EDF has always been known to bring consoles to their knees, and this is no different. Even the PS5 Pro can't keep this game from screen tearing and dropping massive frames. But that doesn't mean it's not far superior from how it started. It's just the nature of EDF. If you know it, you know it. And that's why I wanted to cover EDF5, because EDF is not exactly super mainstream, and I absolutely adore these games. One of the absolute best things about Earth Defense Force 5 is the ability to play co-op, especially on the couch with one friend or up to 3 more friends online. It is an absolute blast playing with friends. You're going to die laughing, killing each other, blowing each other up, saving each other, fighting off hordes of enemies, trying to master the difficulty in the classes. It is so Japanese, it is so over the top, it is so much fun. There are over 1,100 different weapons to choose from. And amongst all those weapons, you have 4 different classes to use. The Ranger, who's the most run-of-the-mill of the group, while he may not have many mobility options other than basic sprinting, he does specialize in quite a few weapons: shotguns, ARs, sniper rifles, and rocket launchers. The Wing Diver, who's able to fly and specializes in energy and plasma weapons. The Air Raider, who's able to call in massive airstrikes and call in the biggest vehicles, as well as throw down various turrets. And finally, there's the Fencer, who's arguably the most powerful of the group, but also the most advanced, so it really does take quite a bit of skill to master the Fencer. All the classes are a lot of fun and take a lot of skill to master, but I would argue that the Wing Diver and the Fencer are the 2 most versatile of the group. Giant bugs and enemies to fight and destroy. The sheer madness of this game is so palpable. It's so much fun, and that's the key thing with EDF. They're just absolutely a blast to play. EDF logic is always hilarious. Let me decimate this city to save the citizens from the giant bugs. It's hilarious and I love it. If you're a fan of the kaiju concept, I mean, it's all over the place here. You're literally able to climb into your giant mech and fight them toe to toe. It's great. The dialogue is cheesy and hilarious. Even though EDF stems all the way back to PlayStation 2 in Japan, really in North America, it pretty much stems back to the Xbox 360. So if you want to have some mindless, crazy fun that you won't find anywhere else, you should really check out Earth Defense Force 5. It is a fantastic game, and like I said, I think it's the best of the whole series. And before we move on to our last title, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on the video. I'm excited to hear from you all. Every little bit helps. And finally, we have Infamous Second Son, released for the PlayStation 4 in March of 2014. I'm not going to bury the lead here. Infamous Second Son, in my opinion, is the best of the entire series, and it was an incredible first-generation PlayStation 4 game. It was the first PlayStation 4 game to truly blow my socks off. Not only in visuals, but story, narrative, characters, gameplay. It's a really awesome game. I've always loved it. Like I've mentioned in a previous video, it was actually my introduction to the Infamous series, because I never really played the other 2 before. While those are great games, this one is the best for me. In terms of the enhancements, they pretty much future-proof this game because there's several options here, particularly the focus on resolution, locking the frame rate, unlocking the frame rate. So what I found to be the best option for my settings was prioritizing resolution with an unlocked frame rate. And through the PS5 Pro, it looks better than ever. It feels like a remaster in comparison to when it first came out on PlayStation 4. Because really on the PlayStation 4, playing it with the unlocked frame rate, especially with the resolution up, it was not a way to play that game. It was very unstable, but because they gave you the option to play it that way, it really did future-proof it. So it goes to show you, having more graphical options are always better, even on console games, because you never know what may be down the road in terms of new hardware. Troy Baker does a great job of portraying Delson Rowe, and the rest of the cast is also fantastic. I really like the relationship between Delson and his brother Reggie. For me, their relationship is what sets itself apart from even the earlier Infamous games in terms of characters and development. It's really awesome. And the visuals here are really beautiful. The visuals were way ahead of their time, and playing them on the PS5 Pro here, it almost feels like a current game. Whereas Cole McGrath had a singular power, Delson is a little bit different. He's able to absorb powers and adapt them, and due to that, you have a plethora of powers that you gain access to throughout the game. So there's more variety with the powers and abilities. The game does a really good job of leading you from one point to the next throughout the open world city, finding the different abilities, fragments to power yourself up, moving the story along. The game has a really good pace to it, very well put together. One minor critique I have though, after playing Infamous 2, I would say the melee combat in this is kind of in between 1 and 2, whereas I think 2 has the best melee combat. It felt perfect to me. Everything else though feels fantastic. Your abilities, your mobility, the controls. What I really like here is the ability to be good or evil, and it's more impactful than ever in the series. Because your initial power is based in smoke, there's just something about going up a vent and popping out the top of a building. It's really cool. I really have a love for playing older games that were merely limited by their hardware at the time of their release and being able to spread their wings on newer hardware. I really love it. So that was 5 PlayStation 4 games that look and play better than ever on the PlayStation 5 Pro, and for that matter, really any PS5. You can't go wrong. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you later.